We're going to do a sample turn playthrough for Gathering of Guardians to give you a sense for how the game plays. A little bit of background, thematically, you are trying to assemble a group of superheroes, fight villains, and accomplish missions to earn the most fame. The player with the most fame at the end of the game will win. The game end is determined by when the major threat, sort of the overarching plot problem, is beaten, okay, which is determined by this number here being achieved on the major threat track by one player. The turn is broken down into two phases. There's a hero recruitment phase where you bring heroes onto your team, and then an action phase. The way the hero recruitment phase works is there will always be one less hero than there are players. The setup we have here is for 4 players, so there will be 3 heroes. Okay? Each player will select one of his or her ally cards, put them on the table. Once each player has selected their card, all cards will be revealed simultaneously. Heroes are selected in descending ally card order. The white player played a 7-value ally card, so we'll get to select first. Okay? He's going to select the King of the Gods. Each hero has 2 components to it: a number of training you get when you recruit the hero, and an ability that can be used later in the game. The white player will go up 2 spots on the white track and then keep that hero card for use later. Once you've used a card, it goes off to the side in a set pile and won't be able to be used again until you reset that later on. Now, the green and red players have tied, each bidding 3. Ties in the game are broken by relative position on one of the tracks, depending on which phase we're in. Since we're in the recruitment phase, white will break the tie. Since the green player is higher on the track than the red player, the green player will get to select next. The green player will select Invisibility. Invisibility is special in that it's a spy card. Spy cards can either be taken by the player who recruits them, in which case they would gain the training, or they can be given to another player, which will allow the player who gave it away to gain a special benefit against that player later in the game. The green player will select to give the card to the white player, which means the white player will go up 1 on the blue track, and the green player gets a spy marker indicating that he has that benefit later in the game. Then the red player will get to select, and we'll take the natural armor. Goes up 1 on the red track, and then also immediately gains 3 fame based on the ability. Okay, slides up 3 on the fame track. Normally, the lowest bidding player would get no benefit in this phase because there's 1 less hero than there are players. The blue player, however, has selected their medic. When you play a medic, you never collect a hero card, but this is how you get back the cards that you've already spent. So the blue player can take back all of the ally cards that he had spent on a previous turn and return all of them, including the medic, to his hand. All players then get their cards back in their respective set piles, and we will then reveal the heroes for the following turns so that players can plan ahead. Now, we're on to the action phase. At the beginning of the action phase, players will get resources based on their track positions. The blue track gives out initiative, which will be used to determine who goes first in the action phase. Okay? Based on their positions, the red player will get 1 initiative and 1 complication marker. No other player gets any benefit because they haven't reached the first tier or benefit level on the blue track. The green track will give out equipment at a high enough level and also determines the number of actions each player will get during his or her turn. The blue player gets 1 equipment and will be able to take a total of 4 actions. The white and green players will each be able to take 3 actions, and the red player will get 2 actions. Now, one of the action spaces will be completely excluded. This is done randomly. So if we roll the die and got a 2, okay, the surveillance action, 1, 2, would be excluded for that whole turn and no player could select it. After the players see which action is excluded, they will secretly bid initiative to determine who goes first. For our example, let's say the red player bids 2, the white player bids 1, and the green and blue players bid 0, respectively. The red player would go first based on his high bid, then the white player being the second highest. And since the green and blue players are tied, we look at our track to determine who wins this tiebreaker. For initiative ties, these are broken by relative position on the blue track. Blue is higher than green, so blue would go third, followed by green. At this point, any players with complication markers can place them on a corresponding action space of their choosing. The red player will choose to complicate the training room, which will increase the cost for all other players to take that action. And we'll see how that affects play in just a minute. Now, we'll start taking turns in this order, and red will get to go first. Red chooses to take a training room action. Each action space is broken down into several individual actions. Each action can only be taken by one player and also has a cost associated with it. The higher the cost, in general, the better the action. The red player will choose to take the 4 ally cost training room action. Training room allows a player to gain training not in the recruitment phase. So the red player will spend a 4 value ally card and then may choose to go up on any track as long as he will not have the most. Okay? The red player will choose to go up on the red track. White player will then choose to go to the training room as well. Now, since there's a complication marker that is of a different player's color, the cost for this action is increased by 1. Okay? Red player was unaffected because it was his color. The white player will choose to take a spot that normally costs 2, but will have to pay 3 to do so because of the complication marker. This allows him to go up in any color of his choosing in which he has the least influence. For the white player, that's the red track. He just goes up there. That is his action. Next, we're on to the blue player. The blue player will choose to take a vault action. Vault action is how you get additional equipment. He will choose to take the level 2 vault action and spend a 2 value ally card to gain 2 equipment. Next will be the green player. Green player will select to combat the villain. The villain combat is sort of a special action. The player will secretly select a card to be played face down next to the villain. At the end of the round, all players' cards will be revealed and we'll see who defeats the villain. Okay? The villain for this turn has a combat value of 6, so with modifiers, each player would need to achieve a value of 6 or more to beat the villain, and we'll see how that's resolved at the end of the turn. This is sort of a special action space in that there's no fixed ally costs. It's sort of determined by the villain in each round. So the first player to go there has no disincentive. For each player that goes there after, they have to pay 1 additional initiative for each player that came before them to the villain attack space. That is the green player's action. Now we're back to the top of the order with the red player. This is the red player's last action, and he is going to choose to go to the combat, the villain attack space as well, and secretly choose a card and just add it there. Because he's the second one there, he has to spend 1 initiative in order to take the action. The white player will choose to complete a mission. The missions have two costs associated with them. They will have a numerical cost to be paid in equipment and also a number of diamonds associated with them. The diamonds on the mission cards correspond to the diamonds on the training tracks. So to achieve something with one red diamond, you'd have to be at or above the one red diamond level on the red track, and so on for the other colors. The different levels of the command center action modify the costs of those spaces. The white player will choose to take the ally value 6 spot, which reduces the tier cost, okay, the number of diamonds required for a mission by 1. This will allow the green player to take the 2 equipment cost card by paying the 2 equipment and meeting the 2 diamond level cost, okay? White has 1 diamond on the track and reduces it by 1, which now meets the cost to gain the construct powered armor mission. That will go in front of that player to be scored at the end of the game. When a mission is completed, the next mission is revealed from the top of the deck, but cannot be completed until the following turn. The blue player will now also complete a mission. The blue player will bid 4. The 4 value level for the command center action reduces the cost of a mission by 2 equipment. This will allow the blue player to take the Repel Atlantean Invasion mission. Cost reduced by 2, so the equipment cost is met. The tier cost of 1 red tier is met by the blue player, who's all the way up to 2 tiers, meeting the 1 tier cost. The blue player gets the mission, which immediately gives 1 advance on the major threat track. Remember, this is the track that will determine when the game ends and also be used in victory point calculation. And again, we reveal the mission that will be used in the following turn. So it's now the green player's turn. The green player will choose to visit the medical facilities. The medical facilities are a way to reset some of your actions without wasting your entire recruit phase turn. In addition to placing his action normally, the green player will choose to take an additional action. Each action space allows the player to take an extra action for a minor benefit in addition to their normal action. The player to go to the medical facilities first will reset a total of 7 value in ally cards. The additional action will increase that total by 1. So the green player will reset 7 plus 1 for a total of 8 value and ally cards, okay, leaving the remaining set cards still unavailable for use. This action will always end a player's turn, so it was wise for the green player to use all of his remaining actions at this point. Next is the red player, who is now out of action, so we can sort of slide this off. He will not get to go again. Then we have the white player, who will use a private action, okay? The ability on his King of the Gods that he recruited earlier in the turn will allow him to, once per game, take a private action that costs an ally of 5 or more to go up 1 on the white track. Okay? So to turn it sideways to indicate that its once per game ability has been used, and spend an ally with a value of 5 to do that. That will allow him to go up 1 on the white track. This was more cost effective than taking the training room action, which would effectively cost 7 at this point to do the same thing. Next, the blue player will choose to combat the villain as well, paying 2 initiative for being the 3rd player there, and secretly selecting a card to go there as well. Now, all players but the blue player are out of actions, so the blue player will get to take his last action. The blue player will take an action against the major threat. Some major threats give you the ability to combat them directly by taking actions. The corporate plot major threat will allow you to combat the major threat as if it hit a strength of 9, minus the tiers on the blue track. The blue player has no tiers on the blue track, so must overcome the strength of 9 normally. Now, the red track will give you advantages in combat. The first level will reduce the combat value by 1, so effectively an 8, and the second level will add 1 to all of your combat totals. So the blue player can defeat this by playing a 7, plus 1 makes it an 8 against the 8 difficulty because of the 1 cost reduction. This grants him 2 additional advances on the major threat track and sets this card. We've reached the end of the round, okay, at which point we will resolve the villain combat. This villain has a combat difficulty of 6, so for any player that reaches that level, they will get a benefit. The player with the single highest value will get an additional benefit. The blue player has a value of 6, plus 1 because of his bonus, so for a total of 7. The red player has a value of 6, and the green player has a value of 5, which normally would be insufficient to meet the difficulty of 6, but because he has reached tier 1 on the red track, he reduces that combat value by 1 down to 5. Okay? So all the players have met the threshold, which means they will each earn the immediate effect of the villain, which is 2 fame. 2 fame for the red player, 2 fame for the green player, and 2 fame for the blue player. Because the blue player had the single highest total, he will keep the villain card and score the capture effect at the end of the game, which is 1 fame for every 2 white training. That concludes the normal turn. We will slide the future villain into the current villain spot, reveal the next one, and then begin again with the hero recruitment.